Good morning, friends. Welcome back to GM Philosophy in the Morning. I'm the GM Philosopher, and today we're diving into something that every dungeon master really needs to hear, but might not be fun to hear, which is the top 5 mistakes that ruin D&D games. I've talked about this before, but I will say that I did a bit of research and I found some things to include in this video that I probably haven't covered as much before, and we're going to dive right into it with mistake number 1. Forcing your story, aka railroading. This is one of the biggest mistakes that game masters can make. I've talked at length about this on this channel, but here's the thing. GMs are often also really good storytellers, and they tend to build killer plots. But here's the problem. They expect the players to follow it kind of like a script, and sometimes they try to force that into existence. This is very understandable, and I can totally understand why GMs do this and make this mistake. This used to be my biggest mistake as a GM when I first started playing. I had this pre-thought out idea, even how the battles were going to go, and I would try to just force it, force the square peg into the round hole. But the real creativity, the real magic happens when we let players, make their choices, and then we react to their choices with choices about the world, etc. D&D isn't a movie. The real magic happens when your players actually surprise you, not when they follow orders. And those of you who are out there watching this video who have learned this lesson, which is probably most GMs, you'll probably agree, yeah, that works a lot better. How do you fix it, though? Prep flexible solutions, not fixed outcomes. This is really the best way that I've found to help deal with this. Let player choices shape the story, even if it breaks your beautiful outline, even if it results in something you didn't really want to happen. Because the truth is, when your story gets ruined for a good reason, it is reason to celebrate. That brings us to point number 2. Mistake number 2, ignoring player preferences. Now, I have not talked about this as much on this channel. This is kind of a new topic. You might love epic political drama, but your players may want a classic dungeon crawl with epic, classic old monster hunts, or vice versa. If you're not running the game your players want to play, odds are no one's really going to have fun. And to be honest, this happens in session 0. That's the fix for this one. Ask your players what excites them. Ask them what they're really looking for, or really strongly advertise the exact style of game you're running so that you can attract players who want to play that style of game. But if you already have players and you and your players are like, let's get together, play a game, it is in your best interest as a game master to ask your players what kind of game they want to play. Have a session 0, really discuss this, even right down to like, what kind of monsters, what kind of vibe, what kind of setting, like, what do you want the feel of the campaign to be, right? And then do mid-campaign check-ins. Session 0 is only the first thing. Do another one at level 3. Do another one at level 6. Check back into the players. Have a sit down and say, hey, let's just all touch base. Where do you want this campaign to go? What are you liking about it? What things have you enjoyed? What are your character's new goals now that we've gotten a little further in the story, right? Then you can adapt your style and meet them halfway. This is going to go such a long way toward helping your players to enjoy the game, and ignoring this and just not doing this, just trying to play whatever game you want to play and ignoring player preferences is a big mistake that some GMs can make. That's going to lead us to mistake number 3, just not prepping good enough, either too little prep or too rigid prep. Okay, so some game masters wing every session and hope it works. Others prep so tightly that the story cannot even breathe, right? It seems like the players really have no options. Both approaches fail, however, when the party does something unexpected, which is always, and which is something they should do, right? So prepping too little can leave you vulnerable to spontaneity, and sometimes it can overwhelm you. You might be like, I'm actually at a loss. I don't know what to do. I really don't know what to do because I didn't prep anything. Whereas being too rigid, prepping too much, can overwhelm you, cause you to rifle through papers and pages and notes and realize that everything's going out of whack. And that can be very overwhelming, and that can have this tendency to make you feel like you need to force the story onto the players and try to keep it on track with the prep, right? So here's the fix. You want to prep scaffolding. This is a good way to kind of describe it, not scripts. Know your key NPC motivations. Know the locations that they're likely to visit, and have a couple random ones prepped and ready to go in case of something unexpected. Keep your prep that wasn't used from past sessions. Maybe you can bring it back in and plug it in. Figure out what kind of conflict you're kind of planning that they might run into, or have a couple monsters, have a couple different encounters planned so that if they do something unexpected, you can grab the one that's most likely, throw it in, boom, you'll look like a genius and a wizard. But here's the real truth is we want to let the scene evolve based on the players. We always want the players to set the tone, let the players lead the story. That's going to lead us to mistake number 4, neglecting emotion and role play. Now, this is probably the one I've talked about the most on this channel. Combat is awesome. Rules are great. But what can be difficult for some GMs is crafting those moments that hit the players in the feels, right? If your whole game is just mechanics without any meaning, then players might show up, but is it really going to be truly memorable? I believe this is a huge blind spot for many game masters. I believe a lot of game masters are like maybe too worried about the rules. They pressure themselves with the rules. They even pressure themselves with prep. Friend, I probably do way less prep than you would imagine. And I have done a lot of improvising. I've probably gone so far that I've realized I need to prep more. Like, I love to improvise, but sometimes it gets a little weird if I do no prep. So like, doing prep is very important. However, I think a lot of GMs don't think about how that NPC can appeal to the player emotions, or how that villain can tap into the player emotions. Like, tapping into the emotions during the role play is really important. And here's the fix: bring emotional stakes into the picture, tie NPCs to the party, use music, use silence, let players feel things, bring elements from the backstory in, and get the players to care about things, and then put those things in danger. Roleplay doesn't have to be performative, right? It just has to matter to the players. If you can get something to legitimately matter to the players, you can actually really increase the amount of emotional resonance in your game without even doing a whole lot of extra work, and it's so much fun. And that's going to bring us to mistake number 5. This is a mistake that I have probably not talked about near enough on this channel. I've talked about it maybe almost zero. But before I dive into this, I just want to let you know you can grab my top 10 GM tips in my 10-minute GM Mastery Toolkit ebook. This is an ebook I created with the top 10 tips to help you take your game up several levels with a 10-minute read. Grab this book, read 2 decades worth of knowledge compacted into 10 minutes, and instantly transform the quality of your next game session. Okay, now we're going to talk about mistake number 5. Burnout, trying to do too much. Oh boy, do I know a thing or two about burnout, my friends. This is the one that some people do a really good job of talking about, but other people, like me, do not give it the attention it often deserves. And I'm being honest about that. And this is probably this is the mistake. This is actually probably the mistake I make most in this era of my gaming. So this is actually more for me than for anyone else. Here's the thing. You might be running 1, 2, 3 campaigns. You may be building massive homebrew worlds. You may be prepping for 3 hours for every 1 hour of session time. You might be also working a full-time job. You may also have kids. You may also have other hobbies. You may have relationship with your significant other. You may have family obligations, and all of this stuff. When you tie your TTRPG gaming into it, all of this stuff might slowly start to suffocate your love for the craft, because it can start to like stifle it and make you feel like there's no time. Burnout doesn't just wreck your games. It makes you resent the thing you used to love. And I know that that's a big statement, but I'm saying it because it's true. Here's the fix, my friends. Scale back. Run shorter arcs. Use published material if you need to. I know you're going to hate for that. There's going to be people who are going to say, what the heck are you talking about? But I'm telling you, it's better to run something published. Better to lean on others for prep. Do what you have to do. Better to improvise completely and to just let yourself be off the hook about it than to burn yourself out or to spend time you legitimately don't have in your life on this hobby that you love. Do not let the amount of effort you're putting into the hobby hurt your love for the game. If anything, scale back a little bit. Run your games every other week, whatever it takes, my friend. Give yourself permission to breathe. You're not a machine. You are a storyteller. You are a story collaborator. You are a human with other humans creating intellectual art and enjoying the magic of the game. And guess what? Sometimes we may need to take a step back. Sometimes you have to do what you have to do to get right with yourself, with your schedule, with time investment, with energy investment, with the emotional investment. And it really matters, because what's going to happen is your games are going to continue to be special. It's going to continue to be a hobby that rewards you, and it's a valuable hobby. So don't burn yourself out on it. So with that being said, here's my final word on this. Every GM will make mistakes at some point, right? I've made all of them. I've made every single one, and I still catch myself falling into some of them from time to time. God knows I'm not perfect, and neither are you. But if you can stay self-aware, listen to your players, listen to your friends, listen to your family, stay connected to the heart of TTRPGs and what they mean to you, the parts of them you enjoy, then your games will get better. They'll get deeper. Your table will thank you for it. And guess what? It will also last a lot longer and be something that gives you massive returns on your time and energy. So there you go. There's my dissertation on that. The top 5 mistakes that can ruin D&D games. Drop a comment. Let me know what you think. I'm the GM Philosopher. Thank you for coming back for another video. I'll catch you awesome people on the next one.